All right, Mariah, so thank you for letting me come in yesterday and observe your small groups. So I just have a couple questions to talk about. What do you think was like the most success of your lesson?
I really think the way I differentiated with the different groups. So one group was my lower achieving students, so they needed more scaffolding and more help. And so instead of giving them time to do it solely on their own, we more or less did it together. The next group was a little less scaffolded, so they came up with a theme on their own. Then we talked about it. And then the last group was pretty much on their own.
Yeah, I thought one success too was how you actually provided them with that multiple choice and really talked about it. And I really liked how you also elaborated on the theme first with, well, what is a theme and how those other words to connect.
Yep.
How was the instruction differentiated for your lowest group to your middle group?
So primarily the biggest part is for them writing it down versus them coming up with it on their own rather than seeing it in the multiple choice. So it was easier for them with having choices instead of them just coming up with a theme on their own. A next piece that I could do would be taking that away and us coming up with a theme together as a group.
And you could tell they really helped with that multiple choice because as soon as they saw a name, they wanted to eliminate that answer.
Absolutely.
And as soon as they saw it was too specific, like with the piano, they wanted to eliminate as well.
Yes.
Okay, so for your friendle group, what are some next steps you want to do with them?
I would say getting them, more comfortable with reading out loud. I would say we've done that in the past and they have been fine, but it was just another body in the room that they were not familiar with. So getting them more comfortable with reading out loud, possibly doing like a project at the end with the book, like an extension piece of the book, and focusing on the standards throughout each chapter.
So I saw at the very end you had them do kind of a quick assessment to gather some information to see if they understood. Do you feel like your groups understood what was intended from your lesson?
Yes, absolutely. The lowest group, since it was primarily done together, even though it was done together, I could still see, well, who gets it, who does not.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the middle group, all of them came up with something very similar. So obviously there wasn't one that completely stood out against the other one. And then my friendle group, they're all pretty similar. It was just they come up with different answers as well, but still along the same lines.
Yeah. So I noticed you did have some technology integrated. Can you explain more of like why you chose to do that?
So number one, they like to read on the Chromebooks instead of having the paper copy in front of them. So I use Pear Deck, so you just create a slideshow and then it is an add-on as part of Google and it has it right in front of them, and then I don't have to have two sheets of paper in front of them because there's not enough room to have two sheets in front of them. So I think that it keeps them more engaged as well.
Definitely.
And then they can stay with me instead of they can't be flipping through slides because it has to stay on the slide that I have up for them.
Yeah. So you also had your independent group, your highest group, working on the Watsons Go to Birmingham. How did you feel that went for them?
Great. They are very, very independent. They can do things on their own. I only have to meet with them about once a week. They are assigned things in Google Classroom, and then they do various things like coming up with their own questions for the chapter, answering those, and then they will have more of like project-based things to do during small group time. And it's really independently guided, so they kind of do it whenever they get done with their stuff, and they don't have any problem doing it independently.
That's awesome. So a couple things I noticed that I really liked watching with your lessons is you connected it to ISASP. Showing them like, this is why we do this. We eliminate the answers and kind of connecting it to that. So that's a good connection for them to see. We know our school-wide focus is fluency right now. So I loved all your fluency strategies of jump in reading, choral reading, reading it independently, chorally.
Yep.
Kind of all those. So it's really tying in our building-wide goal. For your must-do, what did you have them do as they left you?
So when they left me, they were doing they had to read a story that they had read previously in the year, so they probably had forgotten about it. So they had to read the story, and then they were to come up with a summary that also included the theme. And then once they got done with that, they were working on Lexia, the phonics program, and finishing out with their Cats versus Dogs paper independently.
Okay, so that's awesome. So, I mean, you did a lot of differentiating within your lessons, which is awesome to see. And I love how for tomorrow you said that we're going to tie it into a summary for your next group. So it's taking them to that next step because you see they're ready for it.
Yep.
What are some things you want to work on for future instruction as you work with these groups or as you kind of continue with small groups?
Getting them to be more independent. I mean, the lowest group relies on me quite a bit. And so getting that independent piece involved is like my number one goal, having them be self-sufficient, doing it on their own. With the Friendo group, probably more tying in standards-based questions, projects, that kind of thing. And then for my highest group, probably extending it into more of the exceeding standard area.
All right. Well, overall, I think your lesson went really well. You can tell you have those routines set with those students. They're ready to go and they know what's expected of them. You had a lot of procedures in place with the bubbles, make sure your paper's under your Chromebook so they knew they couldn't get off task.
Absolutely.
So you have a lot of good things going, and I think those good things that you want to work on for the future will definitely be great for your kids. Is there anything you want from me to help you with, to kind of help you in the future? Things we can plan or work on together?
I think for sure for next year, just getting it all geared towards the standard and having them reading a lot of different types of texts, maybe focusing on a standard a week, or each group can be working on the same standard, but obviously it looks differently in the lowest group to the highest group, extending those high kids. And I would say technology piece in small group, because I feel like I don't use it enough. I use it a lot in whole group, but I don't necessarily use a lot of technology in my pullback small group.
Yeah. Those are some things we can definitely work on and talk about. Thank you again for meeting with me and letting me observe. Thank you.
You're welcome.